That was already an enormous pleasure. It sounded marvelous, and many wonderful things in that. A beautiful, homogeneous sound, lovely warmth to it, which is so vital in Mozart, and a warmth achieved without too much effort either. So it's without, and too much vibrato, too rich a sound and everything. So it's a great quality, that, and particularly for this wonderful sort of the D major key also needs this sort of warmth and things, which is fantastic playing. And I have to preface what I'm going to say with these good people were tremendously good sports, because they have a concert tonight in Grange, which is a very brave thing to come and play in this situation. So somewhere at the back of my mind, it's so much easier standing here than it is, I promise you, sitting there. But somewhere at the back of my mind, I'm going to put myself in Elliott's shoes and just remind myself every so often that they've got to play tonight. So I might even encourage them to, if I mention a couple of things, to instantly forget about them and then have a memory recovery sometime in the wee hours of the morning, maybe tomorrow, perhaps over a pint later on after the Grange concert. I mean, in the general thing, it sounds wonderful. There are a few small details, but some which for me a little bit difficult. And actually, because you repeat this melody a number of times. If you hear it on the violin, the viola, and then if you take the repeat of the exposition, you hear it on the violin and the viola, and then again at the recapitulation, you hear it on the violin and the viola, which is more than most times you get to play. It's very good practice for us as viola players to have a chance. So by the third, fourth, fifth time, it's beginning to make some progress. Well, not under Elliott's hands, but for the rest of us. And actually, if I digress one moment, we managed to break a string after the recapitulation. So having already played the melody, what did I say, whatever, 3 times each, and so we had to go off and change the string, and so we realized we'd have to start the movement again, which meant we then got to play it another 2 times. So I think I played it 5 times to the poor audience in that. I trust it won't happen to you at that one moment. Yes, there are a few little things, and it's sometimes difficult because I can see that, and you've had a number of lessons, I'm sure, already this week on this, so again, you have to filter everything out. But there are 1 or 2 things that I feel you're doing something because either someone has said something and the difficulty partly because you hear these figures more than once in this piece. Once is wonderful when you hear something surprising, but to hear it each time, it doesn't quite carry the day, I think. And so, for instance, where you played bum ba-li-li-um, dum ba-li-li-um, that's very nice to do that. It's not perhaps the way the contours of the music would dictate the music to go. My instinct would be dum ba-li-li-um, bum ba-li-li-um. He's making progress to the F sharp within the piano, because then he counteracts it with a very loud da 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 da. Forgive my singing, by the way, but my violin's over in the corner, so it's the only weapon. It's the only weapon I've got at hand. Yeah, and then the forte, you see, it sort of sweeps that away. But it seems to me these are questions essentially. Dum ba-li-li-um, and you at the moment gave me a question and answer. Bum ba-li-li-um. Now, perhaps once that would be great to do, because again, so much music where we build up expectations that we have to the listener. So the listener is always expecting to hear perhaps something repeated, and we're continually, great music continually surprises us. I think it's one of the qualities that distinguishes the great music from the good but not necessarily great of equal, of the same sort of times. And Mozart's fantastic like that. You always, little variations and things always just give you a surprise, or where the top note of phrases are, or where little rhythmical variations. And Bach is another one who does that wonderfully, because you see in the unaccompanied suites where the highest notes occur, and all the time it's changing, and all the time it means as a listener we're taken on the story and the narrative of it. But there is a danger that if you create that, come out of that too much, then you actually create, for me that was a little bit, that immediately I thought, oh, that's interesting first time. And then I thought, yes, I heard that for a second time. Okay. By the third time, maybe. Anyway, that is an example. 1 or 2 other small things in the melody. Da, ya, dum, ya, da. Be careful, sometimes you're putting the grace note, I think, and the stress on the A, aren't you? Mm. But sometimes the note after does...
It dies a bit, does it?
Well, it gets quite strong. Sometimes, so it's ya-da, and then also be careful, ya-da, ya-da. Sometimes that one was more than once, I heard that. Again, we can do things, create variety within certain parameters, if you like. But it seems to me, da, ya-dum, ti-dim, ya-dum, ba-dum. There's a natural... Ya da 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 da, ya da 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 dee da yum. And it's very good. Again here, la da yum. It's a decoration. La dum ba da da dum ba dum bum ba da yum. Feels to me that the B natural to the E, if anything, has to be slightly stronger than the A to the D. Sometimes, and it wasn't completely unified with unity between you. I sometimes hear da da da. Yeah, and again, these are setting a framework within which you must be free, because otherwise it would be very tedious at all. But it seems to me there is something in the structure of that phrase, because of it being the decoration of the B-E, there's the falling figure, and then the A-D, which then allows the repeat of the melody, and again, and you expect again, and then dum ba-li-yum, bum ba-li-yum, which again steps up, if you see what I mean, from perhaps a low point. Those are different. There were 1 or 2 articulation things. The other area where there's quite a lot of variety being wonderful, but in certain elements of the music, I think there has to be a sort of family relationship, a family resemblance, genetic resemblance. I should have used modern parlance for that. When you play da, ya, la, 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 you're very carefully observing that he writes under a slur for those scales and not for the rising ones and not for some of the accompanying figures and dots and for me there was it's a little bit laboured almost in the attempt not to be too short. If I sing it, I'm not going to even, I wouldn't dream of going out on a limb. Something of the slow is to do with the breathing of the music, not necessarily the legato of the music at that point, if you see what I mean. And I think it's lovely because all the ups, unless you have a perfect, I mean, there are some people in here who have perfect techniques, but for the rest of us, it's impossible to play all up bows to sound exactly like a machined effort. So there's going to be a lovely, and then they can do. It felt a little bit, Colin's, particularly from yours, perhaps a little bit, Mum. Yeah, a little bit, and again they can. I mean, again, I'm desperately not trying to sort of nail it down. So you've got a lot of variety in that to do those things. A lot of it sounded fantastic, though. Beautiful sound for that. Once or twice, I thought almost you could take a little more time. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-da-ba-ba, dum, dum, dum. Again, on the high note there, it seemed to be almost skitted through faster than it needed to. But again, these are very, very small details and definitely to be forgotten. But it's an interesting balance, I mean, for quartets because. And we all want to be original and do new things, which is terribly important because you good people come to listen, hopefully will continue to come to listen to chamber music. So we have to find a way of saying something new in a different way. But it does also, there seems to me there are certain boundaries, if you like, for music, which have to be certainly paid respects to. It doesn't have to be even adhered to constantly, but somehow one has to know that at the back of the structure, that these things are there. And you're not bad sinners like this. There are far worse sinners who do, sometimes one hears the most sort of bizarre musical things, and you can see that they're trying to do something very interesting. And it can be great fun to begin with, but in the end, I lose track of what's going on with the structure of the music. Let's play from the top again. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop because there was one other element which I think it's worth touching on now. And again, perhaps when talking slightly more generalities rather than detail. The singing quality that you have is lovely. I mean, the sound really, for me, is beautiful. Beautiful sound, lovely, homogeneous, lovely mixture. You get the mixture very nicely of the individual and the corporate, which is fantastic. If you can think that the singing nature is the vowels of the music, I think that the consonants could be spoken a little bit more, and particularly sometimes when it goes quiet, that in the way that we whisper, when we whisper, we have to enunciate actually greater. Now, there's a slight danger sometimes that when we go to the quiet, that the enunciation actually, if anything, gets a little bit fuzzier. Now, there are times and places in music, absolutely, where that's a very important characterization of what goes on. I'm not sure here. So even there's something sparkly, I think, about that, and the way, and even da ya da ya da. Don't completely lose sight of the consonant side of that. There were again a few places when you played it through where I thought just the consonants. And the other great advantage of consonants is that in things like accompaniment, sometimes the consonants are a wonderful way of creating a clarity of texture, which helps the voicing. And this is another part of quartet technique where one starts off by finding the primary voices. Very often then people say, shh, I can't be heard there, you need to play less, play less. And the trouble with playing less, of course, is that it nearly always means less energy, and the whole thing is weakened. In a lot of this sort of great music, we can find ways of creating texture. So even at the opening, the viola can draw double salary for the first bar because he really plays a cello part for the downbeat. Dum, bum, bum, bum. You can gather that the Guild of Viola Players is very dear to my heart. Yum, pum, pum. But even there textually, it's sotto voce, but it doesn't need to. I would still keep a little bit of a consonant on that. And also George went da 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 da. Again, sometimes it's just a slight danger for the balance, and it's not. I don't think the volume necessarily, but still keep the transparency of that. Don't let it get even in a lovely to create colours and things. Just be careful that it doesn't step. One more time from the. Careful of the balance here, even here. It's interesting. It's probably quite directional in here. Just we have to be a little bit careful. Over here, the D's are really very strong, which is great. Okay. But possibly too strong. Because I've stopped and already spoken too much, it's got a little bit slow. Yeah. Really one in a bar. Very good. I'm going to stop you again. Forgive me. I may have crashed the mic there. I'm going to be a little bit finicky, and you'll again forget it. You're still in the hierarchy of the B, E. The B has to be greater than E, the A greater than the E, but less than the first B, and the D less than the second E. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes. Rather than the dum dum. Can you just play it? Ba bum. Exactly. Just play the fundamentals there. Yes, so you understand what I mean. So keep the shape there, that's good. And I think really do try to feel one in a bar. Yeah. And I would suggest that the crotchets really don't think of them as the rhythm. I'm sure you're not, but really just think of them as a subdivision of one in a bar. So yum, bum, bum, bum. Almost the other engine room there to keep it moving. It feels that it needs, can move a little bit more. Not slow. Yes, it still feels a little bit laboured to me, and that figure dum, bum, bum, pum. When you come in on the second crotchet, I would go with the shape of the slur. This is not for you, Colin, obviously, but for the middle two. Almost draw a fast breath and let it roll. Don't da 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 da. Don't again one gesture. With something again we have in music to find a way of that we make a gesture, and very often it creates a ripple effect of waves sometimes, and there's a slight danger that we sort of recreate that energy on each. As I liken it to someone, they'll throw a ball, and instead of letting it just sort of bounce off into the distance, they run after it and catch it after it's hit the ground and re-throw it again each time. We need to be not scared in music, seriously, to sort of give one energy for something and actually just let it take its course. But I think we've heard this enough, haven't we? Where do we go from? Dum ba li yum, bum ba li yum. Long phrase. Yeah, can this, again, this feels a little, just slightly laboured here. Yeah. I think the singing quality is fantastic, and I would really, really go very operatic. But very long, take the bar line out of play completely. It feels that you've got the bar line in there too strong. Yeah. And I mean, here I think the fours and things are important, as Mozart, sometimes again in Mozart, he'll slur stuff by fours, but it doesn't mean that every four notes has to be. But here definitely, but I would still almost trump that by having very long phrase. Really feel, and again, he marks under the viola part, he puts a very long slur again. These long slurs are often to do with really taking away bar lines, I think. Fantastic. Can we begin in the middle of the bar? We go da 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 da, where the cello begins. Fantastic. Colin, you're obviously, and I can, it's great because the direction, you're doing the direction also in dynamic. My instinct would be that that you should cap. Possibly, again, this will be contrary to what you maybe want to do, and certainly contrary to tonight, so you're going to have to just be good sports for a second. But it feels to me that there's something about the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, la-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da. I would go over the top of that and cap it. Don't rush. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, it doesn't need that. It's almost, again, that slightly pushed a little bit. Don't think that needs to. Okay. Yeah, but because again, you've got the consonant. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, yeah, little. This wonderful thing for music of this time where you often get, in one phrase, you get both elements. Haydn's a master of that. You think of da, ya, dum, bum, 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 yum, bum, 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 bum. It's a perfect example of a. So that was, I like that where you really, and also that helps. You see, takes the phrase, keeps the longer phrase going. Lovely. Should we just begin right on bar? If you've got bar numbers, yeah. Lovely. Bar 30 would be perfect. Very good, very good. And those, of course, are short. Again, it's good. Again, you've got that lovely mixture of the sung and the thing. Possibly, and this is maybe a little, again, it's opinion or whatever. I think something of the contrary motion is quite fun here. At the moment, I think you're being too corporate. Or you could, I mean, it's perfect. It sounds beautiful what you're doing. But so that dum bum 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 bum, the falling scale can fall, but actually then the da dum ba dum ba. That one could just try. I mean, not exaggerated, but it feels that you've sort of this goodwill to your colleagues. You understand what I mean? You're sort of going down to the bottom. I promise you, after more years, the goodwill to your colleagues. That bit's not necessarily at the forefront of our mind. Too much, but and then enjoy la la la. Yes, again, yes, exactly. We can always in quartet music. There's these wonderful sort of. It's not just about the melody, but it's about the comments. Yeah, there's a wonderful little comment. Your rising line, and we have to do everything in an ensemble and sort of together, and homogeny are all words banded about for quartet playing. But it's actually management of diversity sometimes, which is quite important. That just this little. I'm afraid as a viola player, I don't get to play that many. Well, I get the one here, but actually I mean, my favourite parts of music are often where those sort of comments are there. I mean, Haydn's wonderful like that, and certain Beethoven's particularly. Where you play greater. That's one. I don't think you need to make a dim down that scale if you were doing it. It's just, perhaps, it's just don't you necessarily need to crescendo to reinforce it. And if you can find different colours for the minor ones as well there, that would be great. Let's go on. We don't need to do that again. Just from da-dum-bum. Yes, exactly. Don't rush. Very good. Sorry, again, to start devil's in detail. I promise I will stop soon. Yeah. But it's interesting. There's a place where I think you can speak them a little bit more. Yum bum ba, yum bum ba, yum bum. You seem to want to maybe even off. Would they work as to?
Or the second
maybe. Bum bum bum. Just try them near the hill, just on their own. Bum bum bum. Oh my God, I'm going to try something very dangerous here, because I actually did get my viola right, but I'm already regretting it. I've been fail. Just slightly, maybe there's a more off the string. Yeah, and also because they almost feel quick, Colin. Da 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 da, bum bum ba. It can be very poised. Still feels too long to me. That's good. And also then the appoggiatura, it's better that way. Sometimes there's a slight danger you'll see sharp then is a little bit. I would characterize it as being a little bit. Yeah. How would you say it? I would embarrass you now because you're in front of lots of people. How would you say it? Yeah, you put quite a lot of consonant. Yes, exactly. Not dry though. But I'll put this back away now. You can think about it. Don't change it for tonight as well. I think I've just caused a disaster for the library here. The labels come off the score, so I'll try and keep it safe. Trust me, I'll be the one fined for not getting the music back when everyone else does otherwise. Yeah, you can see about that, but again, that's an example of where the spoken. And a yum pum pa la di. Just go. Even that time, I thought, Colin, you could almost don't need to push it too much. Where you were just. So I've lost the page in the score now. Let's begin where we just started. You know, da da ba dum bum, da da dum ba dum ba. Yeah, I think you've got, if you wanted to, and I think the speeds now come back beautifully, it almost feels as if you almost there's it seems to me in relation, I mean the music is always either on the flow, and so, you know, when it was very long phrases, I encourage you to move. I think here is slightly more upright. Yadam badam, because yadam badam. There's two crotchet beats in there relative to the big beats of the one in the bar. Yadam badam bam, yadam badam ba, yadam badam. Again, yum badam 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 badam. And again, then it goes into a bigger beat. And so, just you could do if you want. I think your colleagues won't crucify you too much. Well, yeah, I don't know what they're like. Sorry. Beautiful. That may be too much, but just in general, I think it was great. You tested. It's so that psychology. It's great. You tested your colleagues there. I'm definitely min in beats there. And then just feel the slight thing. It seems to me that it's a little bit of and it's not exactly that, but there's just an element of that in it. I think that's great. What would you like to do? Should we go on? Why don't you play on a little bit? We'll just cover those scales. And then see how we're doing. Yeah. Yes, from right on the yada. Excuse me. Nice. I like that. I think almost the most important thing here is that it's closing, isn't it? It's the end of the exposition, and it's not too active and too busy. And it's interesting, even yum, pam, pa, tum, that your stronger bar is past the second one, almost in a syncopated position of the 2-bar beat there, against the falling scale. So a little bit like the earlier passage where I said, well, the falling scale da, ba, 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 is coming down again. Well, doesn't need to force the direction of it, but actually, da, yum, pam, pa, yum. Do you mind doing the same thing again? I'll stay here. Actually, I might even sit down for a second. Very good, very good. It's interesting because you have the melody, of course, double speed here. Yeah. And that shape is beautiful that you do, which is what makes me suspect that the shape I was speaking about, the opening, I think, makes sense. Yeah. Because when he shortens it to that figure, it seems very self-evident there. Yeah. It's different when it's expanded and much longer. That's harder. That's great. Can you just, when the new phrase starts at 72, even though you're going to a quieter place, I think you just need to speak the second crotchet again. You see what I mean? Not you, but obviously when you begin, dum, bum, da, da. Just, yeah. Can you just do, if I give you a bar number, can you do 68? So it's a slightly odd place to start. Subdivide, yes. Okay, good. Just be a little housekeeping, a little bit of housekeeping, quartet housekeeping there. The intonation, G natural, it's not up to your usual marvelous standard. If you say that, it's great. When you criticize any group, as long as you use the word usual marvelous standard, they'll accept all manner of, you can go right through the whole piece, every note's terrible, but it's just not up to your usual standard. But let me touch on something, because I think it's to do with the quality of the sound. I think it's a quality of sound that has quite a lot of focus here. It mustn't be too, and you have to, just the way in different instruments, but try and just see if, don't worry about the intonation, just play into it 2 bars, but just play, and it's interesting because the cello has the repeated crotchets, you see, and you can really see how they become a subdivision of, they're just a texture. Yum, bum, 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 bum. Can you just play the 2 bars in? Yeah. Better. One more time. Again, there are no dots or daggers. There are no dots or daggers on the quavers going in.
Dots.
Oh, there are dots on that side. Yes, I think they could be a little bit shorter.
Shorter?
Yeah.
Good.
Pom, pom, pom. Maybe too much. Good. That's another melody, possibly not for today, but the spoken element just could be a little bit stronger. No, I'd rather do that. Yeah, seems to me again, if in doubt, just say it or sing it to yourself sometime. That may have been slightly too short for the quavers, but I think there's something slightly sort of impish about those things. And then it's a very big, of course, when you go back, which we're not going to do because we'll hear the melody too many times, but you, when it goes on, that's a great shot. Where's a good place to start? Shall we begin at the G major? Well, no, do you want to just begin at the G major?
86.
Colin, may I be very tough? Just, I don't think it works if you go da ba bum ba bum ba ba ya ba bum bum ba.
Okay.
Yeah, the second crotchet suddenly was longer.
Okay.
Last time. Good. Yes, you see, it's interesting. Again, I think there's quite a lot of play to come back to the contra-emotion nature of this, isn't there? Because you have dum ba yum bum ba ya. Now, remember I mentioned about that a bit at the opening, because it's da dum da yum ba dum bum. Has the falling line against the rising line. So again, there's quite a lot of contra-emotion places where ba dum, you know, da dum da dum pum da again. I mean, it's possible, but enjoy the contra-emotion here. That was lovely, Colin. That was something beautiful. You can luxuriate in that. The G major is a lovely sort of key to come in. Ba-dum, 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 ba. I think the conversation is 2 bars. You see what I mean? I mean, there must be a gap, but it's not. See, it's your statement, his statement, then your new statement, if you know what I mean. Just a little bit. Can we begin right on there? Yeah, yeah. It almost feels early, that one. Yeah. The first one almost feels early. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Again, I don't know, when I sing it, I catch my cheeks. I mean, it's a great thing about getting older now, but the cheeks start to sort of move a little bit. Yeah, I think your cheeks would have had a chance to move one direction, and you were in a little bit. Right on the forte there. Lovely. And at that point, we come back again. It's interesting, because he goes up to the D, doesn't he? He does. So can you just play that just play 109 there? Yeah, which comes up. I think is why my instincts are that initially, that as I say, you do vary it, and that was great. But that somehow your bass line for that, not bass line as in cello bass, but the sort of structural line for that is that possibly. Sounds absolutely beautiful, chaps. Play a little bit of slow movement. Yeah. gorgeous, lovely. Isn't that just, it's a heavenly movement, this one. I'm still canvassing with my lot to try and persuade them to do it as an encore, because it's not very long, it's actually quite short, and it's got that wonderful sort of peaceful restfulness and perfect. It's just perfect, everything is perfect about it, isn't it? It's wonderful. It's fantastic. Just one or two very small things, actually, which is just the second bar, the effort on the da-dum. So it's actually sounding like da-dum, when we do that. It feels too great for me at that point. That it should. It's again, I think it's a result of the energy from the bar line at that point, rather than it feels slightly bump. And also, how can I put this? I would swing it rhythmically a little bit if you want.
How offended would you be by an up bow at the beginning?
Not at all. I'm sure we do an up bow, but I wouldn't change it. Don't change it. And. No. But it's perfectly possible. I mean, I'd do it, and I noticed that immediately. I thought, oh, brave, or not brave, but interesting. We start on there is something natural about that. Can you just play the second bar? Just try it on a down bow.
Okay, on a down bow, second bow.
That's too quiet, but it's right, yes. But that's exactly the right energy, I think. So it really is a result of one. It felt too effortful. And it's very interesting. The same is true in the forte. Can you begin at 9, Tutti? That's lovely. And that's exactly, you did that beautifully, because exactly that. When you played it through, the da-dum, first one, was the same as your ba-ba-da, but it can't be, because it's a different energy and a different way of making that work. That was beautiful then. I thought, you can see how it has to somehow just glide, doesn't it, across? And I mean, the one in the bar, you get that beautiful. I love the tempo that you do this. When it da 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 dum da 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 ba la da joy da da da. Enjoy the fact that the first two run under before they go over, and you're there's a good example of where the high note always under variation, and in fact it's perfect, because it's a very good example of what I was saying earlier, because the two of you do the same, don't you? Effectively, you're the same shape, da 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 dum, and then could you just play that? Yes, exactly. Just a melody, just a melody. So we've had two. You probably a third one going to be the same, yes, but yeah. And then you now expect the same here. Fantastic. It's wonderful. Exactly that. So somehow, I mean, it mustn't be flagged up. Exciting moment coming. Arrow pointing from the cartoonist at you. And stand up and take your own private bow and everything. But there isn't that. But all the time, and somehow we have to find a way of living that. Even though you know it backwards, I know you still have to live it in a way whereby it creates wonderful sort of surprise. And then also, of course, the tone colours. It's very genial, I think, the first two. And you've got this lovely, again, conversationally, the fact that it's played on the cello. The character of the cello doesn't need to match completely the violin, but then there's this wonderful sort of vulnerability there. And then the viola, perhaps even more so. And you also already takes the there's already and again a longer phrase. Just here. I think that people who go to the syncopation on the second quaver need to go. Their line needs to come from that one a little bit more. And again, both of da ya la lam bum pi da. At the moment, I heard da la la. For you, I heard the A, perhaps a little bit strong. Can you just pick it up a bit to 28, Colin, from the da da la la. Duet. Not slow though, keep it moving. Yeah, it's hard because it mustn't be an accent. And also, I'm sorry because it's a very bad thing. It mustn't be an accent either. Yeah, yeah. But I think that what disturbed me slightly was that I heard from both of you the A more. Yeah, do you see what I mean? And the F sharp. Yes, exactly. I think for me that it runs from there. And again, you see the contrary motion, da, just coming up here is an interesting, ba, da, da, la, 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 la. He runs off. So again, don't be scared to make the contrary motion of that. Lovely. I think we should take a break. And enormous thank you for doing this for us this afternoon, because it was really marvellous. Fantastic.